Hi guys, and welcome back to another review, and this time around the continuation of what I began with not only the Intuaura balance, and I also did with the Pula Unicrom. In this review, not only will I do a little bit of a comparison between this style of tuning that we starting to see becoming more and more popular, but I'm also going to be talking about two other IEMs which are new. One is the Soratune BL02, which is over here, and the Rose Technics Quietsea2. And why are these two here? Because they also have the same style of tuning that we're talking about here in the balance, in the Unicrom, and also in the Pirol, the resin, and over here the InAwaken Dawn, which was probably one of the first ones to have this style of tuning that I can recall. There were maybe a couple of other IEMs like the HiFi and Delchi, which I could have also included into this mix. And the reason being, all of them have, all of these and the Delchi, they all have a peculiarity, which is they have this gliding style of bass. Which is very well executed. It focuses on a sub bass presence, but then with differing levels of mid bass, obviously presence, and then a very smooth pin again, peaking at 4 kilohertz. The only one that kind of doesn't do that so much is the Delchi, which peaks a little bit earlier and then kind of plateaus. And because of that, and because I didn't want to lead into any confusion on I decided, look, I'm going to take it out. Although to me they sound the Delchi, the original Delchi, and any one of these IEMs, yeah, they all have a lot of commonalities in the terms of their sound. So that's the premise here of all of these IEMs. All of these IEMs here have a gliding style of bass with a pin again, which peaks at around 4 kilohertz, and then some have more or less bass, so more or less extension below 100 hertz, and some have more or less extension above 10 kilohertz. Okay. Anyway, let me get the Soratune and the Rose Technics, the Quietsea, out of the way first, because I mean these are the new ones here, and then we'll delve into this kind of I don't want to call it a comparison, but more of a positioning of what is these IEMs. The Soratune, the BL02 is well, we've only had the YI101, or sorry, the 1I01, which was a dual dynamic from them, to be worthwhile mentioning. They had another single DD, really cheap one, and then they have this this newer single DD in this kind of alloy shell. Fits really nicely, nothing to be said there. It brings a cable only with I'm trying to find here where did I put the case of the where did I put the case? This is the InAwaken's case, I believe. Yeah, here we go. It brings a case that we've already seen being used commonly before. I mean, it's nothing special, really nothing out of this world. Brings decent tips. I'm actually using the stock tips. They weren't too bad. Only the cable really I didn't really fancy, because it's a cable with a microphone, and they don't have an option without the microphone, and that's why I opted for this cable here from Fahil, the Hibiscus. Uses a titanium driver to produce the sound, titanium diaphragm driver, obviously, and overall, I mean, like I was mentioning, it follows this style of tuning that we're seeing more and more IEMs going down this road, and like I've also said before, at the end of the day, the thing here that is the important to keep in mind is they can all have very similar tunings, and when I show you the graphs, you'll see what I mean. But then the subtle differences of diaphragm materials, the shell material itself, more or less emphasis on the bass, will then determine the overall balance. And in the case of the Soratune here, the balance is definitely one that tends towards being on the heavier bass side. And I guess they perhaps did that in an attempt to not make it overly thin, I don't know, because of the fact that they're using a titanium driver, so they wanted to give it a little extra weight so that it wouldn't sound shrill or aggressive or anything of the sort. And they've actually achieved a nice balance. I mean, the truth is they've actually achieved a nice balance. I mean, this is an IM that costs around $30, so, you know, for the $30 price point that they're asking for, to have, you know, to be able to offer a metal shell, what seems to be a good quality driver, and only really the cable is the only thing that I was a little bit disappointed. So for $30 to be able to offer an IFM like this, that actually is capable of sitting here next to much more expensive other IEMs and hold its own to a certain extent, I mean, it deserves its merit. Like I was saying, bass it's got a lot of bass, a lot of sub bass emphasis below 100 Hz. There's plenty of energy there. When I show you the graphs, you'll understand what I'm saying. But then the rest is, like I said, that gliding style of bass, peaks at close to 4 kHz on the pin again, and then extension past that. Nice. If the sound stage doesn't sound as large as it maybe on graph can make you or would lead you to believe, it's because of that that hell of a lot of sub bass that he has from behind. But overall, what I can say is that when I compare it, for example, with the InAwaken Dawn, which now you can get it for cheaper. Now you can get it for something like $30-something. But when the InAwaken Dawn came out, it was like closer to $60. It used a really nice driver, 11mm driver. So when I compare like the InAwaken Dawn here with the Soratune, I will say this much. I actually think that the Soratune actually does a better job, to be honest with you. The InAwaken Dawn, because of the fact that it was using that 11mm driver, it sounded perhaps a little bit overly bassy, okay, although like I say, when I show you the graphs on them, you wouldn't think so, but because it's got a slightly larger diameter driver, it sounded a little bit overly bassy and a little bit darker than what actually the graph would lead you to believe. I mean, this is me nitpicking and me really making or trying to find fault here, to be honest, because the reality is both of them play really nice. They're very easy to listen to. IEMs very smooth. It's a very long listening session kind of IEM. If anything, if you are adverse to maybe a little bit of extra bass quantity, you might get tired because of that. But as long as you don't really crank it up so that the bass can become a nuisance with one or two music genres, or if you've got a music genre which isn't bass centered, I don't think you'll have an issue with listening sessions in terms of be it the Soratune or be it the InAwaken Dawn. But when I compare both of them and I see what the InAwaken was able to do, and now what I see what the Soratune is capable of doing, I kind of have to put my money here on the Soratune. I think they've actually been able to do a slightly better job. So that's basically the Soratune out of the way. I mean, there's really not much more than I can say. As for the Quietsea2, this is a sequel to the original Quietsea, which I've got here. Okay, I have to say that I'm a fan of Rose Technics. They have their own way of doing their tuning. They've had some really interesting 1+4s. They've had a really nice 1+6, the GTX. The QTX, my apologies, which brings the dongle, the Rose Technics dongle, which actually is what I use here, as you can see, for my measurements. So when the Rose Technics Quietsea2 came out, and they actually went around and did something which I applaud as well, very much like Pula did, which is they sent out a couple of units. I actually received a pre-production unit to see what I felt about it, and I felt that the original pre-production unit was way too intense in the mids, upper mids, and treble, and that it needed to be brought down to a more sensible level. And I'm actually glad that they did the retune. I actually did retune my one, and the retune that I did compared to what they ended up doing is it's kind of basically the same thing. They just brought down that energy because it was making the sound be just too aggressive. I don't know, aggressive I think is maybe not the ideal word here to use, but I would say overly or unnecessarily intense. And that obviously was hampering the overall balance of the Quietsea. They use they say it's a PEEQ and carbon diaphragm for the driver, 10 millimeter. They also mentioned that they use something which is called the orbiter architecture for greater efficiency. I really don't know what they mean by that. I couldn't really get too much of some information about that. I mean, it's a metal. It's a metal shell. It's a semi-metal, plastic shell here, which has been CNC machined. So there's some attention to detail being paid here. They just didn't throw things together. It brings a decent enough accessories package, as you can see here. Same sort of case that we see from Rose Techniques, with some nice tips, an exchangeable termination for the cable. The cable is a nice cable, mind you. It's a really nice cable. The IEM itself reminds me of an IEM which HiFiGo had a couple of years ago, and I wouldn't be surprised if this was to a certain extent some sort of a collaboration that they actually did with HiFiGo, because HiFiGo does know how to do stuff. It's got an oval nozzle, which is again a characteristic very typical of HiFiGo. And in a nutshell, that's basically it. Like I said, it seems to me that they did their work when choosing the driver. They chose a careful driver. They took their time in tuning it, and the final tuning that they presented, I think it's been well achieved. If there is any nitpick that I really can put here on the Quietsea2, and trust me when I say it's a nitpick, it's nothing that I would say, it's just the way that they wanted it tuned, and that's why it is that way. Is that yes, it's got a really good bass and really good mids, like for example the Pula, on the same sort of level, but then the extension past 10K is being more tamed down. I'm actually going to see if I can get my hands on another set, just for the sake of confirming that that's actually the tuning that they've gone for, because the original pre-production version had a lot of extension, also past 10. So I don't know if this taming of that extension was purposefully or not, but what I can say is that loss of extension up top, yes, it will contribute to making the listening experience very pleasant, very easygoing, very relaxed. But because of the bass that it's capable of having, it makes the sound sometimes come across as overly warm with certain genres. I mean, if you listen to Dominic Phil Aim, like Some Room to Breathe, if you listen to it on here, it sounds really good. I mean, it sounds proper good. But when you put on something like the Pula or even the Perol, and I'm not even going to go to the balance, you notice that those two IEMs, they do it more justice to that particular song. On the other hand, if I'm listening to something like Zwakala Citizen Deep, which is an EDM kind of electronic music style, I mean, the bass of the Quietsea2 is an absolute pleasure. So if I actually have to compare these three here, which are the ones which have the more bass heavy or the more bass centered type of sound, the Quietsea is on a different level. I mean, that's the reality. Even though it does have that lack of extension past 10K compared to the InAwaken Dawn and to the Soratune, it is a far superior IEM. Obviously, the price is also a reflection of that. We are talking about $69, if I'm not mistaken, so it's almost the same price as the Pula. And I would say that these two are kind of very interesting complements to each other, although they share the same style of tuning. I'm jumping ahead a little bit, but I would say that they are very good complements to each other. Having one makes sense having the other, or and vice versa. Comparing the Quietsea then to the InAwaken Dawn, again, you can see it's a better IEM in the sense that they've balanced it out in terms of the coherence of the frequency range and how everything just plays together. It's a really nice IEM. Now, I think the InAwaken Dawn and the Soratune I can remove by, first of all, by the fact that they are cheaper. An older IM, this one, it's nice, but I think although it does keep up with some of these others here in occasion, you know, with certain genres of music, and it's engaging, and it does have the price going for it. So for the $30, you really can't go wrong if you want this style of tuning. I would say that save up a little bit extra, okay, and either get a Quietsea2 or a Parole or the Pula. These three are definitely more capable than this. So these two, I'm just going to remove them because I don't think they make any sense here. And again, let me repeat, I'm not putting in any way down be it the InAwaken Dawn or the Soratune. They are both excellent IMs. Now, coming here to these four puppies, okay. The resin, the Parole resin, what is its call to fame? I don't have here the Moritz Dragon. That was a loaner. So I don't want to delve too much, because I mean, if I criticize people that talk about IEMs that they don't have, then that doesn't make sense. I do the same mistake. But if you guys do go back to my review, you will recall that I said that the Parole is capable of doing much of what the Moritz Dragon does at a fraction of the cost, and I think that is down to a number of factors. They've chosen a really good beryllium plated driver, so they've chosen the right driver to do the job, and you know, the quality of the resin shell, and they've taken care in the tuning. So this hasn't just been a just throw together everything and see how it is and hope for the best. No, they know what they've done, and the reality is, when you look at the Parole frequency response and you compared it to the Moritz Dragon, the Moritz only marginally edged it out in terms of a little bit extra energy in upper mids and treble, but they were very, very similar. And when I take now the Parole and I compare it to something like, for example, the Pula, I mean, the similarities of the two in terms of overall tuning is quite impressive. I would say that the Pula gets away with giving it just a smidge more bass to the presentation and keeping the same sort of level of clarity and dynamics that the Parole has, but just taking it a step further. So I would definitely say, and now using the Moritz Dragon, just if I said that this kept up with the Moritz Dragon very well, very competently, especially considering its $60 odd price, the Pula does the same thing. There's no, I mean, it's as simple as that. So the Parole has its merit because of that. It was able to go up against an IM which was $600 and show, like I've repeated and said countless times, you don't have to spend stupid amounts of money to have an amazing sounding IM. You don't. It's honestly, guys, side rant, and I apologize for being a little bit on the rantful side as of late, but I mean, when you take brands like Mayer Audio CK-LVX, when you take brands like Pula, when you take brands like Jazeer, when you take brands like Zigat, when you take brands like QE Ears, they have been able, okay, over the last 2 years, two and a half years, to offer products which were reserved for a much higher price point even just a couple of years ago. For you to get that sort of level of performance that any one of those IEMs from those brands are capable of giving us, you had to spend a lot of money, and now you are able to have tribrids and quadbrids and you know, the things like the KE4 or things like the Septet from QE Ears. I mean, those things are phenomenal sounding IMs. That's the reality. They are phenomenal sounding IMs costing a fraction. Why would you go spend, you know, a crap load of money on an IM just for bragging rights? Why? You know, and that's exactly what I have in front of you guys here now, is 4 extremely capable IMs. Granted, the balance is a little bit more on the expensive side as compared to the rest. I mean, this is 60 odd, this is 69, this is 79, this is $150. But any one of these IMs is a tremendous value because they play really well and they compete against IMs which are significantly more expensive. Okay, now Um, let's call things, or try to call things by their name and position them. They, like I said, they all graph very similarly. Which of these two will probably sound the most similar? Um, um, Ultimately, I would say the Pula and the Parole, the resin, they will sound probably the most similar. Why? Because on occasion you see that the balance is just a little bit shy on the bass, but it makes up for that by being, without a question of all of them, the one that edges it out in terms of overall polish and elegance. And it doesn't take much for you to actually come to that conclusion. I just have to take, for example, something like No Ordinary Love by Chris Botti, or The Look of Love by Shelby Lane, Bottom Cycle Blues by Raoul Maidan. Okay, Bottom Cycle Blues from Raoul Maidan, I think, is the best song. You listen to it on the balance, and it really makes itself kind of, okay, yes, I am just that little extra more competent than the rest, and that's why I cost that little extra more. Now, did I notice that extra competence outside taking a walk with my dogs? Hell no. Did I notice that competence sitting in my room or in my office or in my lounge, in a quieter environment? And yes, then I did. So ultimately, like I've said before, at the end of the day, on a normal day-to-day usage where you are supposed to be enjoying the music and getting the Pula or the Parole will be very closely matched here to the balance. The Rose Technics loses out in terms of overall clarity up top and having that little extra bass, which overall makes the tonality of the Rose Technics, the Quietsea2, the warmest. Okay, this has got the warmest sound. This, I would say, has got the most clean and detailed sound out of all of them. These two are the ones that have ultimately the most similar sound. Everything is very balanced. Value for money, guys. Hey, you know what? I mean, I don't want to sound like I'm pushing something here on purpose or anything, but it all depends what you like. And I mean, however much it pains me to say this, the Pula and the Parole are ultimately the two that are kind of the most value for your money. It is. That's the reality. The Quietsea is a phenomenal IEM, phenomenal IEM, really good. And for those that maybe don't like that extra extension up top, or don't like maybe that tendency of the beryllium driver style tonality, might be the one to go for. Okay, but if you like that clarity, I mean, there are occasions when I'm listening to the Pula and to the Parole and to the balance, because of the fact that they all use these really high quality drivers. You have to be kind of taken away and say to yourself, oh my god, how the hell are they doing this? Because it sounds like you're listening to a really good hybrid. It really does. It does. They have that cleanliness, that extension that you only associate usually with something that is using a multi-driver setup. And this goes to prove what I've said as well before, is that yes, there are some really good high quality drivers out there that don't have to cost an arm and a leg for you to get hold of. And I don't understand why brands then have to be greedy and just, kind of like in the case of the Moritz Dragon. If the Moritz Dragon, and I said that when I did my review, if the Moritz Dragon had been $250 to $300, they would have sold a shitload of those IEMs. A shitload. The same thing goes for the MIM Dark Magician. I know I'm beating a dead horse here, but if the MIM Dark Magician had been $250 to $300, it would have been a phenomenal IEM. Come on, guys. Brands have to put into their mind, and I think they finally have realized that they cannot continue to push prices up like this just because they feel like it, because the quality of what you are able to get at lower prices is really impressive. Okay, so just recapping here so we get ourselves in the proper position and we know exactly what we're talking about. Intuaura balance, it is the most audiophile out of all of these IEMs. Okay, maybe on occasion or here and there a little bit lean with regards to the bass, but if you like listening to jazz like I do, Lost Without You, for example, Streetwise, Pleasure Seeker by Paul Taylor, let me see what, Butter by Bonnie James. Let me see another one here. Holding Back the Ears by Rick Broney and Richard Elliott. I mean, it's magical. It really is magical. It really shines. The balance there really makes itself okay. You know, guys, you guys are good, but I'm just that little extra. And if you are able to afford them, you know, why not? Why not? If you want two IMs which are almost the same thing at substantially less money, Pula, Unicrom, definitely, and the Parole. Of the two, I would say because of the fact that it's a more solid brand, the Pula makes the most sense. Brings better accessories as well than the Parole. I think that the $10, yeah, are very well justified. And the look, I mean, yes, it's an all resin shell and it looks nice, the Parole and everything. But I don't know, for the $10 difference, I think the Unicrom does enough to justify itself. And as for the Quietsea, for those that want just that little extra warmer tonality, or they want all of this smoothness, they want all of this relaxed presentation, but they want everything just done a smidge less I wouldn't say intense, but a smidge less energetic up top, definitely the Quietsea. And again, it's like I said, like I was saying, it proves how different materials will, yes, on paper maybe graph the same, but then ultimately the way they sound will be different, and you will notice the difference between the sound. All right, guys, let me quickly show you the graphs and we'll wrap it up. Okay, guys, let's talk about the graphs now. And let me start here with the Soratune. Get that out of the way. Okay, this is the graph of the Soratune. As you can see, loads of bass, but then it's got that nice, you know, pinna gain, very smooth in the rise, peaks at close to 4, some good extension past then. And I think the fact that they've done this bass is to kind of try and mitigate any possible aggressiveness that might happen because of the titanium driver that they're using. Okay, compared to the InAwaken Dawn, and let me just make the Dawn here red so it stands out and you guys can see a difference. Number 14, compared to the Dawn, very similar, as you can see, very similar. The Dawn even sounds perhaps a little bit extra darker because of the fact that it's got that 11mm driver, which will make this area here sound a little bit more present than what it is. It's just more, it's all about displacement. Okay, so those two out of the way. I'm just going to quickly show you here the Quietsea2 before I show it again in more detail, just for you guys to understand why the Quietsea fits into this group of the more bassy ones that I mentioned before, because it's got loads of bass, but the quality of the bass is substantially improved over, be it the Soratune or the InAwaken. And then up top here, it loses a little bit of extension, which, like I said, I'm going to try and get another set so that I can really see if it's been on purpose or not. Anyway, let's take away here the okay, so that's the Soratune out of the way. We don't need it anymore. Let's leave now here the Quietsea. That 100 Hz point there corresponds to close to 3 kHz, which is, as you guys know, something that I like. It peaks very close to 3 kHz, 3.8 if I'm not mistaken. Nice bass, nice balance struck between the two extremes here. Clean, detailed bass, you know, really good. Just a pity about a little less extension, a little bit more extension up top here would have been nice, but guys, it's not a deal breaker. By no means is this a deal breaker. Okay, now let's my apologies, let me just change here one thing quickly. Okay, so that's it. Yeah, all right, now let's throw in here the three top dogs, let's put it that way, so you guys can start seeing what I was talking about. Okay, first one I'm going to show you is the Parole. And just for the sake of a quick comparison, that was the Moritz Dragon. Okay, so Parole, smooth bass, no bleed into the mids, phenomenal in the way that it rises into the pin again. The 100 Hz point there corresponds closer to 2K, yes, not the ideal, but somehow the balance that they've been able to done by the energy that's there and what you have there, really good, really, really, really good. And that, when I put, for example, now the Unicrom, which has got basically the same thing, you can see why I said they sound similar. The Unicrom, however, just has a little extra energy in the mid bass and in the lower mids, just confers that extra amount of weight to the tonality without losing any of the detail up top, and ultimately just makes it a little bit more competent here and there. And that's why I also say, between the Pula and the Parole, however much I also like the Parole, I think the Pula is still the better option overall in terms of accessories, the look of the IM and the sound. It is the although there's a lot of similarities between these two, I think it is on par with what I said before about the balance and the Pula Unicrom being the best or the better sounding IMs of this price, of this style of tuning. My apologies. And now I'm going to be placing here the balance. Let me just quickly just show you individually. So that's the balance in orange, okay, with the Pula, okay, and as you can see, the difference here is mainly in the amount of energy that you have in the bass, and the my apologies, not this one, I'm making a mistake here, it's this one, yes, number 13, and this is the balance with the Parole. A little bit extra more on the Parole, but you can't really notice it. I mean, as you guys can see, the Parole and the balance, they graph almost identical. The peaks where they are, the way that the extension is done, I mean, it's really pretty impressive. But the balance does edge out the Parole. It does. That's the reality. It does. It's all down to you now whether you want to spend that extra money or not. In terms of value for money, the Parole is definitely the better value for money. And then let's throw in here the Quietsea, which you can definitely see is the extreme. So if I take away here the Parole, you can see the Quietsea, sorry, is the one that has the most bass. Again, similar to a lot of extent here in terms of the mids, upper mids and treble, just not as much extension as the balance. Compared with the Pula, the same situation. The Pula's got more extension up top there. It's very similar mids. The bass very similar. It's just that it sounds slightly warmer because of not having as much energy up top. Guys, and that's basically it. I really think I don't know what else more I can say. Intuaura balance, phenomenal IM. Pula, Unicrom, phenomenal IM. That's the reality. I mean, after listening out to it, and I spent the whole day basically just going back and forth listening to these IMs, so it was a bit of an exhaustive day to make sure that what I said makes sense. The Parole resin, Quietsea2, in terms of this genre of tuning, 4 really good IMs. The one that ultimately takes it all away, I think, is the Unicrom, because of, you know, the balance of sound, the price point, everything. If you are looking for the ultimate in terms of performance, and then obviously your wallet will be the judge, or for that purchase or not, the balance definitely is the one to go for, to choose. All right, guys, as always, like and subscribe. Any questions, please feel free to ask me. Take care now. Bye bye.